Welcome to Energising Life with AKR Fitness. I'm your host, Lynsey, and joining me today we have Adam.
Hello.
And back in the hot seat we have Mike.
Hello, is this the hot seat?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
So a few episodes back, it was 36 I think, we talked about how we can be fooled by our own brains. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about how to protect ourselves from misinformation and fads and delve into the world of science. But before we do that, Adam, you joined us in the last episode. We didn't have the opportunity to get to know you, so this is your time to shine. Tell us a little bit about you and what brought you into the coaching world.
Okay, well, I'm Adam. I'm originally just from down the road in Forfar. I moved to Aberdeen about 6 years ago to study applied sport and exercise science at RGU. From there, oh gosh, where do I go? I suppose I'll jump straight to AKR. My first steps into AKR were for a placement interview at first. I met with Mike, I met with yourself, and before I knew it, I was into 6 weeks of coaching and classes and having stopwatches thrown at me. So
how did you find that experience from going, was it your third year of uni?
It was my third year, yeah.
And you had placements before that?
We'd had short placements in schools and things like that, but it was nothing like what the third year placement was.
What made you apply for here?
You can be honest.
This is where I totally out myself. The real reason, I'll be totally open and honest and say I wasn't looking forward to placement. I was probably really comfortable at uni and quite happy just coasting along, sitting at the back of lectures and not really doing anything. When it came to doing a placement, it was like, right, I just want to pick something, get it done. Get through these 6 weeks and move on with my life.
I'm lucky.
So I
You
looked at the
chose wrong.
sheet.
You chose wrong.
I looked at the sheet and I just picked the one that was at the top. AKR Fitness is top of the list.
Now, would you say that was fate?
I don't know what the science would say to that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just, I applied for it. I think Mike got back to me the next day. I came in, I spoke, and I realized pretty early on, okay, this is not what I thought it was. Coaching, training is far different to what I'd expected.
Different how?
That's a good question. I think for me personally, my perception of coaches was what I'd just seen maybe in local gyms, like a rep counter, someone who wasn't all that interested or wasn't all that useful, perhaps, if that's not too harsh to say. And so actually coming here and seeing how, you care for people, how you're there to educate people, how you're there to entertain people in some ways by brightening their day, it just opened my mind to something that was far greater than what I'd expected.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
I kind of took
you
over
go.
there. You carry on.
And so yeah, I suppose like that was me for 6 weeks. Somehow managed to stay around a little longer than that.
Somehow managed.
And here we are today.
Somehow managed.
Somehow.
You must have made a good impression, Adam.
Yeah, so you worked with us through your fourth year of uni. And then, so how long has it been since? I can't even keep track and time.
I was thinking of this earlier. I think it was 2018.
Your
That's when I first
placement.
came in for placement.
Yeah, January.
Yeah.
Okay, so by the time this airs, it'll be January 22. And wow. So it'll be about 4 years since you first came in.
Been a little while.
So when you first came into AKR,
Albeit part-time for some of the uni fourth year.
Yes.
you realised it was different. Did you think at that time, this is actually something that I could be really interested in and having a career in?
It was, and it was only something I considered during the placement itself. Because again, funnily enough, before the start of this, I'd already thought to myself that coaching was something I would never, ever do. Just as I said before, because what I viewed coaches as and what I'd known coaches as in my own experience. But then, as I say, you go through this process where you discover, what it can be and what it can do. And yeah, I kind of decided, this is actually pretty cool. I quite want to do this.
So then you got offered the job to stay around and you obviously took it.
Yes.
And how have you found that journey since, till this day, being a part of AKR?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think from the first week, I would say, was mind blowing. Like I was totally overwhelmed with like everything, and it's interesting to see to this day. Like I still feel day to day you learn stuff, week to week you learn stuff, and so the place I'm in now, I feel as though I've taken on so much over the last few years. I'm just quite excited for what's to come still.
Tell me, just one example of that first week being overwhelmed, and what was it that was overwhelming?
And what was mind-blowing?
Yeah, yes.
I think the setup for one was interesting because I'd never seen a private space before. I'd only seen people coaching in commercial gyms, and small group training, although it like seems, I don't know, it seemed like there was a lot going on, like a lot of moving parts and things. It worked so well that I was like kind of confused as to how or why it's not done so, more often, kind of thing. And then above and beyond that, I think from a more technical coaching perspective, the language that you use was incredible to me, because I'd only known the physical language before of, okay, squeeze your lats, okay, tighten up your chest.
All the anatomical terms and things.
Exactly.
Yeah, through uni, of course, which, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So was that really hard to transition away from using the anatomical language to then using analogies and
User-friendly language.
yeah.
User-friendly? It actually wasn't, I would say.
No.
Because it was so logical. It makes it so much simpler, and I don't think there was a reason to not change instantly, because it just sort of clicked for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. And you're enjoying the process still?
Still.
You can't say anything else, can you? You can't say anything.
Well, he can. He's honest about the AKR fitness at the top of the list. Have you got anything else to add, Adam?
Not at this moment.
Not at this
Excited to see what's to come.
Nice. Okay, Mike. So we'll get on with the next part of this episode. We're going to talk about science and the methods behind it, and hopefully you can get some takeaways to sieve through the nonsense of the new year.
Oh, well put. Yeah, hopefully that just the word science didn't put anybody off straight away there. Essentially, wanted to say, like, again, 2 episodes back, I made the argument that you can't always trust your brain. It's imperfect. It's not a rational, logical computer. So what can we trust? There are so many things, like Lynsey said, the nonsense of the new year, not just the new year, but like detoxes and diets and supplements and fitness gimmicks. And there's it's a minefield out there. There's so much stuff. So how do we know what we can trust? We can't trust our instincts because we're biased, we're influenced. And the answer, to some extent, is science. So I just wanted to share today a little bit about what science is, what it isn't, where it works, where it maybe the limitations of it, and help people hopefully add another string to their bow when it comes to separating the real useful, helpful things from the stuff that is wacky and gimmicky and ultimately unhelpful.
So would you say through all of that the best method that we do have is science, to take a step back and look in at that as a way of guiding us, if you like?
It's not perfect, but it's the best thing we have. So I'll just start with an example I like, and it's, let's say I say to you, I have a dragon that lives in my garden shed, right? What's the first thing you might say to me?
Is your shed big enough?
Prove it.
Prove it, right? Prove it. So how do I prove it? You might say, well, show me then, can I see it? And then I could say, well, you can't see the dragon because the dragon's invisible. Okay, right? So you might think, well, chances are this dragon might not exist. But let's say, what's another way we can prove it? Because there are things in life that are invisible that do exist. So there must be some sort of test we can do. So, okay, dragon's invisible. How about we put sand all over the floor of the garden shed? And then that way we can see the dragon's footprints. I'm sorry, my dragon doesn't leave any footprints. Okay. Let's say we put a thermometer in the shed, so when we can detect the heat, or when the dragon's breathing fire, we can detect that, and we can say, well, there's something in this shed. We might not know it's a dragon, but we know there's something that's creating heat. Sorry, can't. The dragon is cold-blooded and doesn't breathe fire. So the point is, like, I have to control things, and I have to measure things in some way in order to prove the existence of this dragon. And sooner or later, if I can't, people aren't going to believe that I have a dragon in my shed, because I have to provide evidence in some way, shape, or form. And extraordinary claims, like I've got a dragon in my shed, require extraordinary evidence. And there's so many extraordinary claims within the world of health and fitness and within the world. It's like, what evidence do we have to do it?
What examples have we got of those claims?
Are you looking for a health and fitness or a non? Because there's some people in the world that claim that the planet's flat, that the world is flat.
Is it not?
And I mean, this is probably a whole other thing, but the evidence that we have that it's round, like when the astronauts go up and take pictures of the Earth, like we can see it. Now, other people will dismiss that evidence
with a fake photo
and say like that evidence not true and things like that. But that would be an example. Right. Like if you're going to claim, maybe they'll say claiming that we live in a globe in a ball is an extraordinary claim, because like, why are people not falling off the bottom of it? Things like that. But we have science to help us, because we have gravity. We have all different theories and controls to figure out like reality and figure out what's true and what's not. So in nutrition, we can talk about, like, here's my claim that, I don't know, pick a diet. For your diet, like I did, like paleo diet is the best diet. You shouldn't eat this. Or if you want to lose weight, follow this diet. Calories don't matter. It's about this special supplement that you're missing in your diet. So that there's a claim there, and we have to provide evidence. And all science is, like, I think sometimes people think science is this like department somewhere in the world, or in a school or a university there would be a science department, but in the world there isn't. It's a process. It's a form of doing things. So like take the COVID situation where like the politicians saying, oh, we're following the science. My dad's trying to have debates with me, well, they're following the same science as this other person. And, they say the UK government and the Scottish government, do they not have the same science? Or, the scientists are saying this and now they're saying this. It's like there's a misunderstanding to some extent of what science and what the scientific method is. It's not like just like there's a few bunch of people somewhere in the world all wearing white coats going, right, we're the science. It's a method of controlling things. So if I want to know, let's take an example of, well, I'll use that example from the world of like back pain. So quite often people will get told like they've got a sore back and they go and see a practitioner of some description, and they'll get told, the reason that your back is sore is because your pelvis is tilted a certain way. Okay, so how the person could say, well, look, this person's got back pain, and look at the way their pelvis is tilted. Like that's going to make it. That's putting pressure on your back. That must be why they've got back pain, because the pelvis is wonky. But actually, what they've done in studies is they've gone and taken, say, like 1,000 people with back pain. 1,000 people, half of which have back pain, half of which don't have back pain, and so that's controlling, right? Because we need two groups, and then they go and measure everybody's degree of pelvic position, and then they say, okay, so what's the correlation? And they find that actually there are tons of people with a pelvis that's tilted one way or the other that have absolutely no back pain at all, and other people who maybe have a neutral pelvis and have back pain. So the point is, like, it's a method where you control the variables in order, and you control for the biases, like we spoke about in the episode before Chris. So in a lot of studies, both the participants and the scientists are blinded. They call that double blinding. So that's when you don't know. Difficult in a pain study, to be fair, because you know if you've got pain.
Yeah.
But I've got other examples. Actually, I'll just share this example right now. Knee pain. What they did was they gave some people knee surgery, and they gave some people a sham surgery. So they literally put a scar. They just put a scar on them to make them think they've got the surgery. So that, again, the person who did the surgery obviously knows who got the surgery or not, but you, as the participant in the study, you don't know if you got the study or not. So you're blinded to the outcome. So therefore, your impression of what might have happened cannot influence the outcome.
Yeah.
But they control the things, and then they realize, right, did this variable do what I thought this variable did? Do you know what I mean? And that's how we can get a better understanding of what is true and what is not. And science isn't perfect because it's run by humans, and humans have biases and make errors and things like that. But the method, as I've said, is the best method that we have. So if I was to step on, let's say, like in the news just now, they're testing electric aircraft, electric airplanes. So it's obviously new and it's different. If I'm going to get on a new type of aircraft, I'm going to hope that they've studied that with, in the world of science, right? They've done tests. Does the thing overheat? Does the thing go as far as it's meant to go?
Rather than just going on it and there's been no tests, so we'll just chance it.
Or, well, this is a method we dug up some. We found this old treasure chest somewhere in ancient China, and we found these old blueprints from thousands of years ago that somebody had put together. And so, because that's what they thought, and these wise men, or ancient Greece years ago, that's what they thought to be true. So therefore, it must be true, which is what we do. I said bias was an appeal to tradition. So it's just talking about that.
So the best chance we have is to be sort of science-based and understand the evidence.
Yeah, it's evidence-based. So popular debate in nutrition and weight loss is calories in versus calories out. And you'll find some people out there in the world say this principle of energy balance does not matter. It matters about just how clean you eat, for instance. And I've been there, and that's partly why.
And I think at this time of year as well, just to touch on, there'll be so much of that out there, which I think is really good to be having these conversations to get them just to think, actually, is this evidence-based, or am I just jumping on the next bandwagon of fads?
Exactly. And so you'll get gurus and so-called experts and whatever that'll say, oh, it's all a lie, calories in, calories out. That's not. It's more about maybe insulin, or it's more.
And where
about
are they getting that evidence from?
Well, that's people who I'm not because I was there. You either don't understand and appreciate the scientific method. You maybe are a conspiracy theorist and believe that the astronauts' photos of the Earth are not real. You're genuinely trying to help, but your own biases are getting in your way. It's an in-group bias. It's a confirmation bias. It's something else. But to go back to the science on it, for energy balance, what they do is they take people and they put them in I'm trying to think what the term is, but like a nutrition lab where they can literally control or measure how much energy someone expends, and they control how much food they give them. And this concept of calories in, calories out is never violated in that setting. Sometimes it appears to be violated out in real life when you're like, oh, I was in a calorie deficit and I did not lose any weight. But you weren't 100% fully controlled like you would have been in a scientific environment. your mind got in the way. You forgot that extra biscuit you had, or the way that you tracked your food wasn't correct, or things like that.
If only we could all go into a science lab once every couple of months.
Yeah. And so the scientific method is just controlling variables, trying to protect against our natural human biases. And then it goes through this process of peer review where the scientists, the researchers would write up what their experiment was. Fully, like, did you have to do a research project at uni?
Yeah.
It's like, so as a budding scientist at uni, you do a
budding scientist. What sort of thing would you have to do? Do you remember, Adam?
My research project was pretty dull. I can share a little bit about it, but did you do anything interesting? I can't remember.
Mine was on measuring muscle mass within people, and it was comparing two different methods of measuring muscle mass one to another.
Yeah, so two different
Doesn't
tools.
sound as though you find that too interesting.
I'm trying to understand.
It was skin folds, and it was a 3D scanner, wasn't it?
That was it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then will you try to decide what one was best?
So it was basically saying that skin folds are our current most practical and best measure for estimating muscle mass. But can we use this high-tech 3D scanner, which is far quicker and more efficient? And so it was essentially trying to assess, are the results of the scanner as similar to skin folds as we'd like them to be?
And can you think of some form of controls that you had to use when you collected your data or when you did your study?
Ooh, taking me back now, what do you think?
It's easier for you than it is
No, I
for
was
me
going to say,
to
not
go.
as hard as Mike. Haggard Mike.
I know.
I don't know. I mean, I guess being even just a neutral researcher, I suppose, who didn't care for either outcome. I suppose if you go into that specific example with the intention of proving that the scanner would be as effective as skin folds, you might be more inclined to
Look for that as an outcome.
look for that evidence. Yes.
Yeah, and that was one I wanted to share. There's a nutrition researcher, Brian Wansink. There's a famous book he had called, I think it's Mindless Eating, and it's a few years ago now, but he actually had to retract a number of studies because it turned out he was like falsifying the conclusions he drew were not supported by the data he collected in his studies. And so it's examples like, listen, science is not perfect because there are still humans and there's still biases brought to the table. But ultimately he got found out. And there's this process of peer review where things get checked, or one study doesn't prove anything. It's like, is that study repeatable? So if Adam does a study and finds like this groundbreaking thing, well, then another research group will probably try and replicate it and say, well, hold on, we did the same thing as you and we didn't find that at all. And so there's like forms of checks and balances to keep things away from the biases that we have.
Yeah.
And so one in your study, if you're doing, so the term anthropometry is the measurement of man, and one of the techniques you used was skin folds. But in order to take the skin folds, you have to be at a certain level of practitioner, and there's a set like markers on the body, and you were certified, I imagine, in taking the skin folds. So because the data has to be collected accurately in order for the conclusions to be, valid is the word. And that doesn't happen when it's your mate from the gym or, your parent friend outside the school gate saying, oh, I did this great thing and it worked for me. Okay, well, did it work for you?
Variables, is there?
Yeah, like, did it work for you for the reason that you thought it worked? Do you know, I went on this X diet and it really worked. Yeah, well, it worked because you ate less food. That is supported by the science, but it didn't work because of this magic supplement that you took, or the fact, you were maybe doing more exercise, or you're doing other things in there. And so that's the...
I love the term correlation is not causation. And so in a diet context, it's easy to think, oh, well, I consumed this supplement or I followed this plan and that is why I got the results I wanted. When in reality, it's because you've adhered to the principles of weight loss. You followed your calorie deficit. That's actually what's caused your results to occur.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's one that it was going around the internet years ago, back when I was blogging, where it's like there's a correlation between ice cream consumption and shark attacks.
What?
So does eating ice cream make it more likely that you're going to suffer a shark attack? No, the correlation is like when the weather's warmer,
You're
more
at the
people are
beach.
buying ice cream and more people are in the sea. So it's that sort of thing. It's like, did the thing work? Was the connection there because it's a true causality, or was it one of those like things that appears to be the case?
And what we're saying is science is our best chance at understanding that.
If you don't, I don't know what else you can go on. Do you know, you can go on personal experience. Well, do you know what? Like when I eat my porridge in the morning, I lose more weight or whatever. I'm trying to think of an example, right? And in your personal experience, if that works for you, that's fine. But it might not work for the reasons you thought it worked. And that doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody else. And, you know, I would say that's another limitation of science as well, because studies typically have a lot of individual variation. So if there's 100 people in the study, let's say it was a study to see what's the best rep range for building muscle when I'm doing squats. And you have 100 people doing 6 reps for 6 weeks, and other people do 12 reps, and other people do 20 reps. And what you do is you would probably also do 6 weeks of that, and then you'd have a detraining period, and then you'd mix up the groups. But there are some people that will build way more muscle than others anyway, because that's their genetic makeup. And so they call it N equals 1. So N, in a scientific study, N usually refers to the number of participants in the study. So N equals 1 is when you're just like your own study. It's just you. And so you might not always respond in the same way as the study truly found, but it's still the best tool that we have to go on, because what else can you go on? You can go on your personal experience, but you'd be wiser to do things that are evidence-based, which can be science. It can be if you're doing your own little self-experiments.
And what if, say, the listener is overwhelmed by all this, and how do I trust what science is best? Like, there's so much information out there, and some people claim that they're evidence-based, but maybe they're not. How can the listener
It's very difficult. It's very difficult because there's such a thing as pseudoscience, which is something that appears to be science and isn't. And to be honest, the paleo diet, like back in those days, like when I was involved in that was kind of pseudoscience, muddled in with my own set of biases. So,
give us a deeper understanding of that, so the listener can understand what you mean.
That could be cherry picking a single study. Maybe here's a situation, right? You've got a TV doctor who says, here's the new groundbreaking way to lose weight. It's based on this study. And so you think, well, do you know what? The guy's a doctor. He's saying it's science-based, it's study. Intuitively, it makes sense because it's it just makes sense, like that if I eat less chocolate, I'm going to lose weight or something like that. But actually, maybe the study was sponsored by the company that sells the diet. Maybe it was a study that only had 6 participants and there was no double blinding, and maybe the study wasn't peer reviewed. So it's not actually science, it's pseudoscience. But that's where it's really difficult. And in a couple of episodes' time, we're going to try and like pull this together and give people more of a compass of where to go with it. But if we go through the steps, like, difficult to trust your brain because you've got biases. The scientific method is our best hope of detecting what's reality. Again, another limitation is, of course, it evolves because our technology evolves. Studies get replicated and redone and things like that, and more things get found out, and what we thought was true. Again, go back to astronomy. What previous people who would have been considered scientists hundreds of years ago, what they thought about the universe, they're now learning actually it's something different. We used to, when I was a kid, there were 9 planets in the solar system.
Yes.
Right? But now we can see further. We've got better methods. So that's a limitation. But I think the takeaway is, if you can have a skeptical eye, both on your own brain and both like, what is this claim? Again, the more extraordinary the claim, the more extraordinary the evidence needs to be. If someone's going to say, look, here's this new thing, I can give you this one pill and you're going to lose weight and feel great and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that sounds pretty extraordinary, okay, what evidence? If it was something like that, I would expect tons of studies to supporting it, things like that.
So just being open-minded about what is out there, basically, and taking the approach that we need evidence.
Yeah, being skeptical rather than open-minded. Do you know what I mean? Like kind of open-minded, but kind of like, this sounds a bit...
It's not quite
too
right.
good to be true.
This sounds a bit too good to be true, exactly. And where was this? And like, if we did a study, like, how would this come together? Do you know? And there's so many people, especially at this time of year, that just get drawn into the mad, the latest trends and things like that. And it's just like, let's think about it. And we've had so many guests on talking about that. Actually, I've learned over and over again, I just need to do the basics.
Yeah.
The things that are evidence-based, the things that are principle-based.
And which we'll get into in the last episode of this season, I believe.
Yes, we will.
Boys, do you have anything else to add to this episode?
I think that's it. I think that was my.
Are you sure,
main
Mike?
Points. I'm just checking some of the notes I wrote down. Listen, I hope it wasn't too. I hope we were able to make the point that we wanted to make. I don't want to. I know, like, I'm not going to question other, like, whatever beliefs people have in their life, in the world. And I will say, like, someone said to me once years ago in here, well, science doesn't know everything. It's like, yeah, I know. Like, let's take, here's an example, right? This links back to this other episode a couple back. So let's take Tai Chi, okay? Tai Chi is an activity it's an ancient Chinese, if I'm not mistaken, like exercise. It's a form of light flowing exercise. Now, for centuries, it's probably been done. And what the point is, it's the chi, like you're moving this form of energy around your body. And people feel better for Tai Chi. Now, in scientific studies, Chi has never been proven to exist. Okay, that's not to say. So, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because we cannot detect this Chi does not mean that it doesn't exist. But by the best measures we have in our world today, it's looking a bit like the dragon that lives in my shed. Do you know, you're like...
But it makes the person that's practicing the Tai Chi feel better.
Right, so Tai Chi works. They've done scientific studies where they've controlled and they've given people Tai Chi and people feel more mobile and less stressed and things like that. And was it because they were moving and flowing this Chi around their body, or was it because they were moving blood around their body, aka exercising and breathing and doing some mindfulness and being present? And studies have shown that these things are real. Studies haven't shown that Chi exists. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not poo-pooing anybody's beliefs. I'm just saying, like, the best tool we have to figure out what is real is science. And by science, it's not this big department of boffins. It's just controlling the variables and doing tests, controlling our own biases, and saying, like, well, if we control for everything else, does this thing do what we thought it did? If we did squats versus a leg press machine, right? We could build the same training program. We could give people the same calories of eating. We could have some people doing squats, some people doing leg press. We could run it for a period of time and we could say, okay, so all other things being equal, i.e. controlled, which exercise is better at building strength or growing muscle, things like that. That's all the scientific method is. It's controlling the variables, controlling for the biases, and using that to find out what is real as best we understand it in the world today.
Well summarised.
So yeah, we'll leave it there. As I said, I hope that wasn't too dry and has some value. And in a couple of episodes' time, we'll bring it on a little bit further and hopefully give some takeaways for people.
Yeah, I think that summarised it really well. If you haven't already, listeners, please head back to episode 36. And I think the start of the series with how your brain may fool you really ties in well with this one before going on to the third and final episode of the series. Adam, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
As always, Michael, thank you. If you've got any questions or you want to reach out, please email us at podcast@AKR Fitness, and we will see you in the next one.